Welcome to page 3 of the Income and Expense Declaration. As with all the other pages, you're going to make sure that you fill out the case information here and the case number, but to make this video quicker, I'm not going to do that. But you're going to do it in yours. This next section here is the following people live with me. You need to fill this out accurately. People often don't want to reveal the income of their new spouse or the income of their roommate, and it can feel really invasive, but the court may need this information. So in the case of Sam, he's not living with anyone. He's living alone. But you need to fill out the income information about your new spouse because the court's going to need that information. The Department of Child Support Services is going to need that information so that they can run a calculation. People often think, oh, well, my new spouse shouldn't have to support the kids, so their income shouldn't matter. And it's true. Your new spouse's income is not going to be considered for purposes of paying support. Your new spouse's income is going to affect your tax filing status, your tax bracket, how much you pay in taxes. I'm not being particularly articulate. So if you're a low wage earner, and let's say you work quarter time at minimum wage, you're not going to pay a whole lot in income taxes. But if your spouse makes $60,000 a year, you're going to be taxed like you make quite a bit more money. So you're going to have less money to pay for the support of the children. But then on the opposite side of that, I'll frequently see situations where somebody has a roommate, and it might be a new significant other. It might truly be a roommate. The roommate's not paying any rent. The roommate's not working. And the party in the case is complaining, I can barely afford to live. I can't pay child support, or I need more child support because I can't afford to live. But they've got a roommate that's not working and not paying any of the expenses. And often courts don't look on that kindly. So even though your roommate's income is probably none of your business and you feel like it's none of the court's business, if you're complaining, I can't afford to live and pay support or only receive that little bit amount of support, but you're choosing to live with a roommate that doesn't work and you're choosing to support the roommate, you could have a problem. So that's why this section is really important. Also, it can help the Department of Child Support Services and the court figure out if you don't really understand the question about how many dependents or exemptions you claim on your taxes. And it can also help the court sort out who should be claiming the children on their taxes. So fill this section out. And actually, I said Sam didn't have anyone living with him. Sam has Terry living with him. Terry is Sam's son, and Terry is about 2.5 years old. Obviously, Terry has no income. Sometimes kids do have income, though, especially when they're teenagers, and that's important, relevant information to put here if your kids do have an income. Terry doesn't, and he's not contributing to the household expenses. In my last video, I discussed estimated expenses versus actual expenses versus proposed needs. So I usually do estimated expenses for this next section, and this is basically the household budget. And it's not what you aspire to, it's what's actually happening. Well, in this situation, Sam is in a temporary situation, so we're going to do proposed needs for Sam. Sam right now is couch surfing, but he knows that's only going to be able to last for a month. So he needs to fill this out with what he proposes it's actually going to cost him to live. And, I may want to explain to the court why we're doing proposed needs. Anyway, we'll get to that. So we're going to propose that Sam's going to need to pay rent at $800 a month. He's not going to have any mortgage interest or principal because he's paying rent. He's not going to have any property taxes because he's paying rent. He's going to have renter's insurance. That's going to run him about $10 a month. Sometimes people don't have renter's insurance. And actually, you know what? It's going to run him about $20 a month. Maintenance and repair costs. He's not going to have a whole lot of maintenance because he's renting, but he's still going to have to do things like change the light bulbs. Every so often the sink might start to leak and he's going to want to fix that himself because that's the kind of guy Sam is. So he's going to have a little bit of maintenance and repair. If he's going to rent a house, he's going to have some lawn care needs and whatnot. So that's the sort of information that's going to go there. If you own a house, you're going to have more maintenance and repair costs, especially as the house gets older. So, try to be accurate. And this section here is typically, what do you pay on average over the course of the year? You might only have actual maintenance and repair costs of any sizable amount once or twice a year, but it might be $1,000. So you're going to want to try to think about that. Healthcare costs not paid by insurance. So this is things like prescriptions, co-pays, ambulance rides, although, hopefully you're not taking ambulance rides frequently. I'm just thinking about things that I typically see in this category. Maybe chiropractic care isn't covered by your insurance, so that would go there. So in Sam's case, it's $50 a month on average, and for him, that's one chiropractor visit, a very low copay, and his prescriptions. Child care. So Sam and Jessica split the cost of child care for Terry. And I don't remember offhand what Jessica said child care was, but Sam's going to have to pay for half of it. So we're going to say that it's about $450 a month, because probably going to run in their area about $900 a month for Terry to go to daycare. Groceries and household expenses or household supplies. We're going to estimate $300. This is going to be stuff like the food that Sam buys at the grocery store. And I have this conversation with my clients because we have this other section here, laundry and cleaning. So I typically only see numbers in here if my client is, or a party is going to the laundromat. So if they're living in an apartment that doesn't have a washer and dryer, they may be going to the laundromat. If they've got a maid, if they've got dry cleaning, that's when I typically see information here. And then their cleaning supplies usually go in here. So their laundry detergent, their Clorox scrub for their sink and tub, that usually goes in here. So in Sam's case, he's been going to the laundromat. So he's going to have laundry and cleaning expenses here. It's running him about $20 a month, but he's also going to have some laundry soap expenses here because he's got to take that to the laundromat, and he's going to have some actual cleaning supplies and his groceries. So that's how I handle that. Eating out, Sam's spending about $100 a month eating out. Utilities, so gas, electric, water, trash. Usually as I'm going through this with people, I find out that there are some utilities that fit better in this category than this category. So I like to discuss both the telephone, cell phone, email, and the gas, electric, water, trash at the same time. So telephone, cell phone, email. I don't actually know anybody who pays to have an email address. To me, this means internet service. And a lot of times the TV is wrapped up in this. It used to be that I saw cable TV or satellite wrapped up in your internet service, and I'd also see a landline wrapped up in it. Now I see a lot more TV subscriptions, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Netflix, DirecTV Now, things of that nature. So this is basically your telephone, your cell phone, your internet, your TV subscriptions. So for Sam, it's $250 a month, and for him, this is his actual expense and his proposed need. So you might have some combination of proposed needs and actual expenses on this, but for Sam, we're going to call it proposed needs because he's couch surfing, looking for a place to rent. It's not going to last very long. Okay, and then utilities, gas, electric, water, trash. Sam is anticipating living in town, so he's actually going to have some sewer expense. If he lived outside of town in this area, he'd probably have septic. The sewer, that's the one that normally isn't listed here, but I have to add, and that I add to this section. So Sam anticipates that this is going to run him $300 a month. Electricity is quite expensive in Sam's area. He's going to rent a small apartment and he likes to be warm. Okay, clothes. So this is another one where I typically add up the whole year and take the average. I find that men usually have a smaller clothing bill than women. However, I find that white-collar men, so men in banking, accountants, CPAs, insurance salesmen, not so much realtors in the area I'm in, but realtors in bigger cities, yes. Attorneys, they tend to have a higher clothing bill, and auto mechanics, contractors, loggers, they tend to have a little bit lower clothing bill. So I'm just throwing that out there because sometimes people will tally up what they spend in the year and they'll say, oh my gosh, that's hardly anything. How is that accurate? And I'll look at what they're wearing and I'll be like, yeah, it looks pretty accurate. And so I just use that to try to get some more information out of them, make them think about what they're spending their money for their clothes on or what they're not spending their money for their clothes on. Next is education. So Sam's an attorney. He's going to have some continuing education expenses, but that is going to be captured in his profit and loss statement. So I try not to double count that information. So, but I also like it to be obvious that that's what the expense is. And Sam didn't list any continuing education on his profit and loss. He probably should have. Maybe he didn't have any continuing education for that particular year. But on average, I'm going to say it's going to come out to $100 a month. Now, if his education expense were also on his profit and loss, I would put a little note there, see profit and loss. And I'm going to want to make it clear that this is continuing education. When Terry gets a little bit older, he might need a tutor, and that would go in that situation. In the income and expense declaration we did the other day, Jessica was working on her master's degree, and so that went in that category too. Just some stuff to think about for the education. Entertainment, gifts, and vacation. This is another one where I add up the entire year and take the 12-month average. And let's say that this is about $1,000 a month. Sam likes to go on vacation. And so this is going to be Sam's vacation expenses. It's going to be the Christmas gifts that he buys, the birthday gifts that he buys, going to the movies once a week, Mother's Day gifts, things of that nature. Auto expenses and transportation, so insurance, gas, repairs, the bus. In my area, I don't see a whole lot of bus fare, and I don't see a whole lot of bus fare in more rural areas for people in Sam's profession, but in more urban areas, I see bus fare. For Sam, he's got auto insurance, gas, and his repairs, and it comes to about $800 a month. Sam's truck is paid off, but if it weren't, that would not go here. If Sam's truck were not paid off, that would go down here in section 14. Okay, insurance. This is life and accident. It is not home, auto, or health insurance. That goes somewhere else. Auto insurance would be here. Homeowner's insurance would be here. Renter's insurance here. Health insurance was on page 2. So Sam doesn't have any life or accident insurance. Savings and investment. It's not uncommon for people not to know how much they're saving or investing regularly, and they just kind of put whatever's left over at the end of the month in to their savings or an investment. In this situation, we're going to say that Sam is putting away $100 a month. Charitable contributions, Sam's not making any, but if you make charitable contributions, you're going to want to list them here. And the court may want proof depending on how big your charitable contributions are. Now, this next part wants you to add up all the monthly payments for section 14 and write them in here. Well, in Sam's situation, he doesn't have any monthly payments. He's been good. He doesn't have any debt. If you have any other expenses, you're going to write that here in section Q. And what I tend to see here is vet bills. And if people have a big dog, I tend to find dog food in this section. For Jessica, we discussed that she had some goats and some chickens. If she bought her goat food and her chicken food at Walmart, then I would probably put it here. If she had a business, like a hobby farm, then I'd want to separate that out. In her case, she buys her goat food and chicken food at the feed store, so she put it separately. Well, Sam's planning on living in town. He's not going to have a dog. He's not going to have those other expenses, but if you have them, you're going to put them there. Those aren't the only other expenses you can see. Those are just the most common ones that I see. You're going to need to pull out your calculator, and you're going to need to tally up all of these expenses and write the total here. And then we're going to want to know if someone else is paying for any of these expenses. If they are, put that information here and then write a little note. So it could be that, you did this for the total household expenses, in which case I would want to make it clear these are the total household expenses. And then if your roommate pays half, you'd put it here. And then I'd make a little note that your roommate pays this and it's half of the household expenses. This isn't the situation that Sam is faced with, but I wanted to make sure that I mentioned it. Okay, if Sam had any debt, we would list it here, but he doesn't. So now attorney fees. This section only has to be filled out if a party is making an attorney fee request. I like to fill out this section even if the request isn't on the table, if a party has an attorney, so that if the request is made, I don't necessarily have to go back and do another income and expense declaration. Well, in this case, Sam's an attorney. He hasn't hired an attorney. This section is not applicable, but if it were, I'd fill it out. To date, I've paid my attorney this amount in fees and costs, write how much has been paid. The source of the money was, be honest about this. It might be a gift from your aunt. It might be a loan from your parents, in which case I would expect to see it here. And you might be asked to produce an actual loan document. Sometimes if the case is contentious, people do that. They'll also do it if they don't really think that it's a loan and it's just a gift being called a loan. I still owe the following fees and costs to my attorney. You're going to write that here. It's not uncommon for somebody to have paid $5,000 for an attorney. They got some of the money from their mom and they had some of the money in savings, so they'd specify it there. But they need to make a $2,000 replenishment, so they're going to write that there. And then you'd write your attorney's hourly rate, and then your attorney prints their name and signs and dates saying that they're confirming that this really is the agreement. That's the end of page 3. We're going to move on to page 4.